Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast, a space where we embrace marks acquired through our journey. My name is Elizabeth Savion, and thank you for joining me on this week's episode. I have Nicole Martinez on this podcast, and she shares great advice and just encouragement for anyone that feels like they are stuck in where they're at, where they have dreams and they have goals, but they feel like there are so many limitations or just don't know how to embrace the season that they're in. So I really hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and let's just get right into it. I'm really excited for this week's interview with Nicole Martinez. She is from Polanco Chic, and I'm really excited for today's conversation. Welcome to Beauty Marks Podcast, Nicole.
Hey, so happy to be on here with you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for accepting the invitation. We've known each other virtually for quite a while now, like since last summer. So just getting to know you over social media, but also having this conversation. And we have so many similarities, like, which is crazy. And even common people that we know. So it's really a small world. But for those that don't know you, can you share a little bit about what you're passionate about and a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I am actually in Atlanta, Georgia, in a small little town called Woodstock. And I've lived here for more than half of my life already. I have an amazing husband and two little boys, Judah and Jethro, that are my whole world. They definitely keep me busy. And then I'm also very involved in my church. And on top of that, I have my small business that launched a year and a half ago. So I'm busy all the time, I feel like. But yeah, that's a little bit about what I do.
Yes. Do you have a business? You said that launched about a year and a half ago. How has that journey been like? What is Polanco Chic's vision? Because I feel like it's really more than just clothing and styling.
Yes. So we kind of were talking about this a little while ago. So a little bit of like my back journey, I guess, is I have a degree in advertising and I did that for a few years. And then I got married and had a baby. And in that process, my son, my firstborn, Judah, was born early. And I had to kind of make a decision in that moment on whether I wanted to continue working or spend my time with him. And he was in the hospital for a month in the NICU. And in that moment, I just knew that I wanted to be with my son, that I felt like that's where God was calling me in that moment. But it was a very difficult transition for me because I was married when I was 29. So I was already very independent at that point. I kind of just was very career minded. Like I had goals and plans and all of these things, right? And I had to kind of transition from that point to becoming a full-time stay-at-home mom. And I struggled so much with purpose during that time. I knew that I had made the right decision, but I still struggled with feeling like there was still something more that God had for me. It took about 3 years, actually, when my son was 3 years old. My husband and I decided to kind of try again for our second child. And in that process, it didn't really go as planned. There was just things that came up and I wasn't able to conceive as quickly as I wanted to. And I felt like God was kind of saying, okay, maybe this isn't the time, right? But then I ended up getting pregnant and my husband kind of brought forth this business idea that was kind of his own. And then he kind of felt like, Nicole, I feel like this isn't my thing. This is for you. I want you to take it and, kind of run with it. So that's how Polanco Chic got started. I was 3 months pregnant at the time. It was a very difficult second pregnancy for me. I was sick all the time. And starting the business in 2019 was what kept me going, kept me feeling motivated and just kind of seeing the end in sight. Like this pregnancy and everything I'm experiencing is just temporary. Like there's more to come. God is moving in a way that I don't understand yet, but I'm just going to keep working. So that's how Polanco Chic kind of launched during that pregnancy and during that period of time where I was trying to figure out my purpose, but more than just, motherhood. Um, but just kind of knowing that God was positioning me for something else. And something that has always been very important to me is just investing into women. And I have a whole backstory that we won't touch on right now. But I know that God was calling me to kind of step into this world that maybe I didn't fully understand, but in a world where I was going to be able to impact the women that I was going to come in contact with. So the clothing was just a small piece of it, but really what we were going to impart was going to be what he was wanting from us, from the business.
So that's how you connect clothing with empowering. So it's like so aside from every girl that wears something from your shop, do you do things practical to empower them or to encourage them?
So one of the things that we started doing, like I said, we've been in business a year and a half. So we launched in September of 2019. And then a few months later, that is when COVID hit. So we had to kind of stop everything, kind of dead in its tracks. My partner and I are both moms, and she has 2 kids. I have 2 kids. So we were dealing with all of that in the process. We weren't shipping anymore. So we kind of had to stop and kind of reevaluate where we were heading. In that process, we started looking into breast cancer awareness and just different topics that women in our area were experiencing. And that kind of launched a whole different side of Polanco, the heartbeat of Polanco. Just being able to give back to women that were struggling in a physical form, not just in an emotional form, because we thought maybe this is just an emotional thing. We're just here to invite women into our community so that they know that they can pursue and fulfill their dreams. But in that moment, we realized that it wasn't just an emotional need that we were feeling, that it was physical needs that we were feeling of the women in our community. So we were actually able to raise money during an event that we had, a pop-up in October, and we were able to donate a percentage of those proceeds to a woman in our area that had breast cancer. So that was really big for us. And we've still kept in contact with her, and she messages us and, thanks us. We were able to pray with her. I don't think she was a believer at all. But we were able to just, share that kind of love and instill a little bit of our faith-based nature, in the conversation. And that was really powerful. I mean, that beats selling any item that you can possibly have in the store.
Yeah, it's like for a bigger cause or purpose outside of, and I like how you said it was like the heart of Polanco Chic. And so I see that you're very passionate about empowerment and encouraging women and just helping women. So can you share a little bit about your story, maybe where that passion comes from? Is it from your own personal experience or challenges that you faced?
So yeah, I have always had a special, I guess, desire to be able to just invest myself into women. I had a very difficult moment in my life when I was in my early 20s, and I felt very lost. I felt very confused. I felt like a portion of my identity had been ripped away from me. And I had amazing women that stepped in and would message me, would send me cards. My mom, constantly telling me, don't give up, keep going. This isn't the end. And I had those women that were friendships, constantly empowering me. And based on that, I knew that if these women were giving to me, that I needed to be able to give back as well in some sort of way. And God did begin to just bring people around me that I was able to breathe life into, like those other women were able to breathe life into me. And so I think it's so important, especially in the world that we live in today. There's so much comparison, there's so much competition, there's so many things happening around us that it can easily divide relationships. It can easily divide, one woman from another woman, but really that's not where your power comes from. That's not where the victory lies. It all lies in the connections that you create, right? And the harmony and the power that you can give somebody else, speaking life into them. Just one little thing, you can do it. Don't give up. On social media your pages, being positive and uplifting and letting other women know, like, you can do this. It doesn't matter if you're a mom. It doesn't matter if you went through a difficult, challenging time. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a situation that nobody knows about or something that's like so exposed that everybody knows about. Like, you don't have to give up on your dreams. You don't have to give up on yourself. Like, God created us with a purpose. And that's something that is really big to me. And it's always been really big to me. But even in the season that I'm in right now with my business, it's understanding the purpose of God in our lives and not stopping until you know what that is. That's something that I'm currently experiencing with Polanco, and just making sure that I'm hearing the voice of God clearly and that I'm doing what I need to do for my business and not necessarily what another boutique is doing or what another, influencer is doing or anybody around me is doing, but just discerning the voice of God in my life, and what he's calling me to do, and finding purpose within my business based on those things. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for that encouragement. I see that like in you that you're just very passionate because it's something that you've had to walk through. And I think from our challenging moments, how you said, you end up seeing that you're like, wow, like not sometimes in the moment. So, because one time when you're going through those challenges, you don't think, wow, this is going to help someone one day, or like, I want to help someone. It's usually after the fact that you're like, wow, like I saw there was someone there for me. Now let me be that for someone else. So I love
And,
how you shared that.
it's crazy because it's crazy how when you align yourself to the will of God and you just make yourself accessible to what he wants to do in your life and through what you're doing. Like, you may not have all the answers. I don't have all the answers for my business. I don't know, like, I don't have the 1, 2, 3, connect the dots, the secret sauce, and this is how we're going to break X amount of followers or have this many people on our website. Like, I don't know. We're still progressing and learning, right? But it's amazing when you surrender your will and your control to that of the Lord. And I have an example I wanted to share that just happened today because I've been really struggling with, again, just the whole purpose. Like, Lord, what do you want from me? Because I have kids, I have a husband, I have people that are drawing and pulling from me that need me. I want to do homeschool with my son. He's going to be in kindergarten in August, and there's all these preparations that I have to make. And I'm like, Lord, everything that I put my hands to, I want it to be something that has purpose. Like, I want to see it. Like, I want to see that you're moving, and I don't want to sell clothes just to sell clothes. Like, it has to be more than that for me. And so one example that happened today was one of our followers reached out to us, and was like, hey, like, let's sit down and have coffee. Can I meet with you in Jolie's? I need guidance. Like, I'm going through a situation right now and I need guidance. And in that moment, it was crazy because we don't know all of our followers. Some of them are local, some of them are not. Some of them you have, deeper conversations with as you get to know them through a screen on social media, but like, you don't know their lives, you just check in every now and then. At least we like to do that. We'll check in with our followers. Hey, how are you? Or, oh, this is happening, But for her to reach out to us was like such a confirmation from me that, like, wow, I am fulfilling a purpose, because this person could have gone to anybody else, but why did she come to us? Like, why we opened a door of communication with her that she came to us. And so it's amazing how God works and how God will respond to your questions in due season and in due time, and it'll give you more motivation to say, you know what, this is where I'm supposed to be. I still don't know how I'm going to get to where I really want to be, but this is where I'm supposed to be now. And it has no dollar sign behind it.
Yeah, that's so good because you made yourself available and that's what God wants. It's interesting that you say about purpose because I heard something the other day that I feel like, because we all ask that question, like, what is my purpose? What is my calling? Like, God use me. And I feel like where that purpose comes from really is in our time with God. Like the more we come to be with God in his presence, praying, seeking him, like above everything else. Cause just like you said, like it's not even the dollar signs, even though God wants us to be abundant, like have the
Right.
abundance. But it's like seeking him and getting to, as you get to know him, he will guide our steps. He will open the doors that no man can open for us, you know? So it's like that, giving all our plans and things that we want, because God knows our desires and he wants the best for his children. He wants the best for us. So what are things that you have, in all the challenges that you have faced and overcome, and, switching from how you said, like from one thing to the next and still not knowing the next step, how have you been able to take full charge of the season that you're in, to bloom where you're planted, to see where you're at and be able to flourish in that time?
So I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not very complicated, especially if you are, faith based. And in order to follow the direction that you're supposed to go in, it really comes in your time with the Lord. And sometimes we can get so caught up in our desires and what we want and how we want it, the timing we want it, when we want it. We have all these things and we X God out of the equation. And I'm guilty of that. There was a season at the midpoint of our business where I almost forgot about what God wanted. Like I was just, doing the daily things and wondering like, well, why is this not increasing? And why is this not increasing? Well, we need to do this. And, my mind started spinning. And before I knew it, I was in this trap of anxiety and I couldn't think, I couldn't process, I didn't, I was confused, I was lost about, is this where I'm supposed to be? Is this the business that you have for me? Am I doing it right? And then I really had to come to the realization, like, when was the last time I sat down before the Lord and I prayed and submitted and surrendered my business to him? And I do a lot of brain dumps, whenever
Mm-hmm.
I get like really anxious or I have a lot on my mind and I can't do everything at that moment because I'm with my kids. I'll write things down. And I was like, God doesn't want me to provide another brain dump. Like he wants me to come to him and
Mm-hmm.
just like the word says, cast all your cares and anxieties on me, like he is there. And so that's something that I've really had to learn in this process is like, you know, giving it to him and not trying to control the process,
Mm-hmm.
but finding the identity and the purpose through him. So I don't know if I answered your question though.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, the second part would be how do you, so in the midst of all of those changes and uncertainties and seeking God, how do you bloom and flourish where you're at, when, how you have mentioned before, there's comparison, there's having to adjust to a new thing. You touch on
Yeah.
being a mom and kind of how that identity, changes
Yeah.
of like, who am I now? And like, I'm a mom, what does that look like? So I want you to speak more like on that, because I feel like that's important for women listening. Like if they are moms and they feel like they still have dreams and passions that they want to do.
Yeah. I think again, it's just aligning yourself with the heart of the Father and just, obviously that would be a message for like a faith, someone who is a believer. Like, when was the last time you aligned your heart with the Father's heart? Like, when was the last time that you shut out the noise of all these hats that we tend to put on, whether it's motherhood or being a wife or, working here and doing this. Like, when was the last time we aligned our hearts to the Father's heart? And that's such an important thing. But if we even take that out of the equation, how do you bloom where you are planted? I think the rawness of it is just understanding where you're at and not wanting to be somebody else or live somebody else's life. It's really hard to be happy or stay put in an area or in a season when you want somebody else's season, or when um, you're just struggling in yours. And I think it's about learning to like submit and surrender where you're at. So how do I bloom where I am planted, or like where I'm at? It's just like, this is the season I'm in, like it or not, this is where I'm at, and I'm going to make the best out of it. So I think it's a thought thing. It's like a thought process. Like, I'm going to be happy where I am no matter what. And that's kind of how I've made transitions in my life, or I've been happy in certain seasons in my life, even though they haven't been perfect. But like, this is where I'm at. I'm going to make the best out of it.
Hmm. You were sharing earlier that like you can't do anything, everything. What does that look like to you? What you said, hold that
So,
thought. So I'm waiting for that thought.
so what I kind of meant by that was, you can't do everything in the aspect of, you're not like a soul ranger. You can't do everything. And one of the things I think society tries to like push down, kind of put in our heads, is that like, you can be the best multitasker ever. You can do everything and anything.
Oh
and
yeah.
and it's like, well, there are things that I feel I'm better at than other things, for one. And number two, um I really can't do everything, because when I start doing too much, I start becoming very anxious, and I start becoming very like confused and overwhelmed. And what I was saying about my partner is that I think that's what God has taught me with our partnership more than anything else, is that like, you need to learn to rely on other people. Like, there's other people around you that you can pull from, that you can ask like, hey, can you help me, can you help me tag these items? We have a big event coming on up. Hey, can you help me price these items? Can you help me steam this dress? Because I just can't right now. Or, I need a little bit help with social media. Like, you know, can
Hmm.
you help? Can you lend a hand? And that's been the hardest thing, I think, is understanding that, like, kind of removing your pride from the situation. Even though you may want to do everything, and maybe you are really good at everything, but is that what you're supposed to be doing? Like, is that what you need to be doing?
Mm. Yeah, because sometimes you can do those things, but it lets you negate a certain area that you might be better. How you said, it's like, let's say you're really, really good at marketing, like, but you're trying to do also the finances part, but then, like, you know what I mean? It's just like the juggling. So if you get to delegate and knowing that there are people there willing to help, I think you touched on this earlier about like, sometimes we like, this is something that, especially in the social media world that we live in, it's like, you, instead of using people as a competition, it's like, think about them as someone you can collaborate with, someone you can
Right.
work with. It's like they're doing their own thing in their own lane, and you guys can just help each other, if you're willing to. I don't know what your experience was growing up, but I feel like we just were raised, I was raised in a space where it's like every woman's like a competition. It's like, oh, you have prettier hair, you're better at this, you have more guys, you have more of this, instead of, as we get older, we're like, wait, like, that's garbage advice. That's not good teaching. It's like, no, like, how about we collaborate, like, highlight the good in other women around you, not, and they're good doesn't mean that you have less of something, that you are less of anything.
Yes. So I have a really good friend that I talked to recently, and it was in relation to the what you just spoke about. It's, seeing other people, you can't have that view of them in such a negative light. Like everybody's out to get you, and this person's better than you, and they do it better than you, and they have, like I said, more followers than you, and like all these things, especially when you are starting something new. Like that is the biggest crutch, and the biggest, I feel, why a lot of people never really fully succeed in the things that they're in,
Mm-hmm.
because they're always looking at everybody else and how they do it. And,
Mm-hmm.
we've been in business a year and a half. Like, I have to be realistic to where we're at right now, and not the business or the person that has 100,000 followers that's been in business for 10 years, and had
Yeah.
their big break at 5 years. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a process. Everything in life is a process. And we forget that. We forget that. We forget the word process, period. We just want to get there and be where everybody else is. We want to keep up, but really, sometimes God is teaching us in my time. I'll do it in my time. Keep
Mm-hmm.
following, keep being obedient. And again, with small businesses and surrounding yourself, I love to surround myself with women that are starting new things and new adventures, because we need each other. We
Mm-hmm.
need that confidence booster. We need that check-in. And not everybody understands your mentality, or like where you're at, like with your business, but another entrepreneur or another person that is experiencing something similar to you will understand where you're at. And that's why it's so important to network with the right people, and to kind of put yourself out there, even if it's not comfortable for you. I'm a very big introvert, like I really am.
Really?
A lot of people don't think that about me, but
I would never assume that. I'm like, you're so outgoing. I feel like you're natural.
so it's hard for me sometimes to put myself out there, and then your insecurities start kicking in and
Mm,
everything like that. But then I meet amazing people, and I'm like, no, if I would have just stayed in my shell and not sent the first DM or whatever, like we would never be having this conversation,
mm,
like who knows if we would have ever connected. But my friend was sharing, we're like in this process of like this pregnancy process as a business. Like she has her own small business, I have mine, and we're like in this process of like pregnancy, right? And the process of pregnancy is a 9-month process, in the natural form, right? But in that process, there's so many things that happen. There's things in the first trimester that happen. You have the nausea, you have the vomiting. Not all women are the same, but some, those are the things, right? And
mhm,
then in the second trimester, there's like a whole nother group of things that you kind
mhm,
of look for as your baby continues to grow. And then the third trimester comes, and there's all these things until the day that you give birth. And you give birth to this thing that you've been creating in your womb and taking care of, and making sure that you're eating the right things and drinking the right things, and all those things. And it's the same way with a business. And when I was pregnant, I had friends that constantly reached out to me, like my good friends. Hey, how are you? Hey, I'm gonna go drop off these nausea lollipops so that
mm,
hopefully you feel better. Or hey, you don't want to cook today? Like I'm gonna go drop you off some food. Or I had a friend that came and cleaned my house. Like I needed that, and it's the same thing when you're starting a business. Like you
mm,
need people around you that understand where you're at, and that community of women that can impart life into you.
mm.
So that's super important.
Yeah, that's good. And even if you're not starting a business, I feel like any dream or goal that you might
Yes,
desire in your heart, you need
absolutely.
people that are rooting you on and that are literally like how you said, like being the hands, like, okay, what do you need? Like, and just encouraging you to feel supported because not a lot of people have that. When they're starting something new, a new venture, a new goal that they have, they sometimes have people around them that are shutting that goal down, that are like, well, you can't do it. Like, really, like during this time, like really, like you're this old, like people just putting that energy, and usually people that criticize you, they usually don't have their life at that level, and they probably criticize themselves. Like they're kind of projecting that onto you.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you're surrounded, how you said, around very encouraging, empowering women that are there for you, that are able to understand. So what encouragement do you have for women? What's one last thing, encouragement that you have for women that are trying to go after something that's in their heart?
Absolutely. So if I could say one thing, I would say don't allow your current circumstances to dictate where, in your heart you want to be or you want to go, whatever dreams you have, because God has given you those dreams not so they could lay dormant, and not so that they could be forgotten just based on the season that you're in. Like motherhood, I could have said, no, I'm a mom now, and I'm not going to fulfill, like my season has ended. And there has been many times where I've felt, man, did I miss the mark? Like even, in this season, because I have to go so much slower now in my business, because I do have, I love being a mom, and that's my priority first, and being a wife, that's my priority first. My business comes second. Or, it's the Lord, my family, and my business. And so sometimes we can feel guilty if we pursue the business avenue when we are still mothering, or wherever we're at, right? But really, God doesn't change his mind based on the season that you're in. Like God doesn't change the dreams that he gave to you just because things have changed around you. Like he hasn't. You just have to adapt and evolve. And so for me, something that I've had to learn is, okay, my dreams of my dreams of starting a boutique actually started when I was in middle school, and now I'm 33 years old, and they're just now coming to this point of beginning, you know.
Mm.
um but so many times I've said, I wish I would have started before I had kids. If I didn't have kids, I would be able to get all this work done and all these things. I would have been farther ahead. But God has also convicted me and been like, no, this is when I wanted. This is when you were ready. This was the time. This was the plan. Forget about the past.
Mm.
Forget about what you did and didn't do. Like, this is the now. This is where I have you. And be faithful to me. Like, be faithful to what I have called you to. And things will go to where they need to go. And so I would just say that, it doesn't matter the season that you're in, what you're experiencing, no matter the challenges. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on the dreams God has inside of you. And just like you said, it doesn't have to be a business. It can be any other dream that there is out there. Whatever it is that you have in your heart, just don't give up on yourself.
Mhm. Wow, you encourage me. I'm like, oof, that's so true. Like, and I love how you said that you had that dream since you were like young, like in middle school. So it's like you see that, like those desires that you have in your heart, they don't go away. Like if that's something that you want to do, like go after it, no matter the age, no matter the time. And I feel like now I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like you have like a why, like a much bigger drive to now, with your kids. Like it goes far more beyond yourself now in your life.
Absolutely. My kids are my biggest motivation. I want them to see that, mom can do anything. Like, mom can do this. She was always at all of my practices and my games, and she helped me with school. But, she also worked on her business. Like, my 4-year-old knows, like, when I'm going to leave for work, and he says, Mommy, are you going to Polanco today? Like, he knows
Oh,
that, he's
yeah.
4 years old, and he's very aware of what mom and dad are doing. And that's so important, because I want to teach them that they can follow their dreams. Like, they can do it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't matter what mom is busy all the time, but she's
Mhm.
still doing it. Like, I want them to see that. I want them to grow up believing in their dreams, and knowing that, my husband and I are going to support them 110%. So that's really important.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing your heart, for being open, and encouraging someone today that needed to hear that word. Where can people connect with you, Polanco Chic, all that you're doing?
Awesome. So thank you again for having me on here.
Of course, I'm so glad.
I love your podcast. I found you, I don't even know how I found you, somewhere in the Instagram world, but I listen to all your podcasts, like genuinely. I love what you're doing, and I encourage you to keep going, girl. Don't give up, because it doesn't matter the amount of engagement that you see or don't see. Like, people are watching, and that's, people are watching. People are always watching. So you are impacting. But how you can find me is on my Polanco Chic page, my business boutique page. That's at Shop Polanco Chic. And then if you would like to follow me as well, my Instagram handle is at the Casa Martinez.
So make sure to follow her. And thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode.